So let's get to beat number one.
So this is our first Australian edition, which is exciting. So I did this yesterday,
Yeah.
like last night, obviously because it's 10 a.m. now. So I did this like just before dinner yesterday. So first beep went off at 4:37, and I've written down I was looking at a photo on my phone of my friends and I in Melbourne the other day, and that my inner experience was just soaking that photo in. There was no thought per se. I was just looking at the screen.
Okay. Um, so you're looking at a photo of your friends in Melbourne, you and your friends in Melbourne.
Yeah, all of us in Melbourne the other day when I came back.
Okay. So you're looking at this photo.
Hmm.
Um, is this looking at the photo, and soaking it in? Is that the action that's happening now? Like your eyes happen to be pointed at it,
Hmm.
or is it also experiential?
Yeah, I think that this was like uh, a nothingness moment rather than like super experiential. Like, as in, yeah, that was the act that I was caught in of looking at the screen and like soaking that in. So I was like, I think like how the other day when we were talking about conversations and like when I'm listening and you're just like soaking in the information, it sort of felt like that. Like I was taking in the visual thing that I was looking at, but like that was, it was really that simple. Um, there wasn't a vibe or a, or any of that sort of stuff present. I was just, yeah, it was kind of pretty empty, but taking that in, if that isn't a oxymoron.
Okay. So it was pretty empty. Um, but there may have been something there, or it was like I don't know. Let me think. Mm, were you? I'm kind of blanking.
I know. It
Like
wasn't,
how?
yeah.
So between nothing, like how confident are you even of this of sample? Like, do you think it was probably a nothing, or maybe a bit of something, or what
No,
would
I
you
don't
say?
feel like there was I don't feel like there was a lot of something. Um, I feel like this was pretty nothing, that sort of like um, zen empty sort of state that we've sort of discussed before. Like I wouldn't really describe this as autopilot because I
Yeah.
was like sort of mulling over the photo. Like there was something, like I was registering that, but it um wasn't creating so much in me that there's something, like I wasn't, stewing over a particular thought or a particular element of it, or it wasn't conjuring up some sort of feeling or anything in me. It wasn't any of those, but I wouldn't describe it as like autopilot. But maybe that's where we're finding that these are the challenging ones, where I feel like maybe autopilot is when I'm really, or what I've been describing as autopilot is when I'm really clearly doing a task. And whereas this
Mm.
task that I was, interrupted doing was not really a task, it was kind of like looking at my
Yeah.
phone and stuff. So I know what you mean.
Because yeah, in one sense, I think it could be helpful to have terms that you call it, like this is a kind of
Yeah.
autopilot thing, and we can call it that, and this one's more of a nothing.
Yeah.
But I think in another sense, we have to treat like each moment as its own thing.
Hmm.
So I guess in that sense, it doesn't matter so much if we call it autopilot or not, so long as we
Hmm.
understand it.
Hmm.
Um, but you you did compare it to the conversation one
Hmm.
the other day. So this my dog is barking. I'm gonna go see if I can placate him. Maybe open the door or something. Poor little guy. Um, so mm, where was I? Yeah, so I guess in comparison to the conversation one,
Mhm.
um, but it seemed that that one was more experiential. So
So my sense is that we might be going down the wrong track here, because it seems to me that we have said that this is nothing or empty or something like that, but I don't think we actually mean that it's nothing or empty. What I think we mean by that, and this is a question. What it seems like we mean, like, as I'm taking in this picture, it's not like I'm turned off. It's I'm taking in this picture, but I'm not doing anything more than that.
Mhm.
So it's nothing on top of or nothing beyond the taking in of the picture.
Mm. Mhm.
So it wouldn't be fair, it seems to me, to say this is nothing, because it's possible for my eyeballs to be aimed at something and I'm just not seeing it. I'm not doing anything about it. My eyeballs are aimed at it, but it's not registering at all. That's not what we're saying. I'm gathering.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
it seems to me that this is sort of like I'm looking at the picture and I'm taking in the picture,
Yeah.
and but there's nothing beyond that.
Mhm. Yeah, like I wasn't, because I tried to think about this at the time, like, was I, particularly fixated on a bit like, "Oh, my hair looks funny," or "That person looks particularly happy," or anything like that. It wasn't even that. It was just like I was looking at the picture and taking in the whole thing, but yeah, it wasn't then emanating some larger thought or emotion or anything, but I was definitely consuming the thing I was looking at, yeah.
okay. Um, so I guess yeah, but I still don't want to discount the possibility of a nothing, I guess.
Mhm.
So I guess between those two possibilities, what Russ just said and kind of what maybe we together got at earlier, like between those, which do you think is more accurate?
Well, I think what Russ has just described is sort of maybe sometimes what I struggle to define better than like a version of a nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe that what he's describing there is sort of my base layer that I find hard to articulate, where it's like it's sort of a nothing. I think that what he's just described is what I'm trying to describe when I say that, like that it's not like fully autopilot, like coming back to those layers again that I seem to always go back to. But like I think that base level, I don't know, whatever I want to call that, but like that is almost like this sample is almost like now I'm going too wide, but like sort of my norm, where it's
Mhm.
like that sort of level of nothing but something, but really nothing.
Okay, nothing, something, nothing.
And I know that doesn't help you,
Um,
Julian.
but it might be that nothing beyond absorbing the
Yeah.
photo. Um, but yeah, I was curious. I was asking about comparison to the conversation before, and maybe that's a misguided question, but let's see, I guess.
No, I don't
So
necessarily think so, because I think it's all sort of relevant in that, and even like I said there, like I reckon my normal state is very and so in conversation and in that one, it's sort of like the inner experience is really observational. And in that, it means like taking in whatever information is in front of me. So whether that is looking at a photo on my phone, whether that is listening in conversation, that sort of all feels the same to me, I think. Like, I think they are comparable, but, maybe Russ, you would challenge me on that. But I think that sort of observational state of being is definitely one that I can, yes, that feels right. And that is when I'm, yeah, taking in information, but there's no next layer of, oh, that's really eliciting a certain response in me, or that's, you know, or I'm
okay,
really stewing over this particular thought or whatever. I think there is some relevance between linking those two things.
and that's a focus just on this one with the photo. Um, is there any content present about the photo? What's in the photo, or no?
How do you mean?
Um, I mean, well, I don't want to tell you exactly what it is because if it's not there, it's not there. But like, um, so something about something that's in the photo is that at all present in your experience?
As in, like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Like, so I can tell you the picture was a photo of my friends and I sitting in like a garden. So like, yeah, there were roses and we had drinks in our hands and there were like 4 of us girls or whatever. But I wasn't particularly aware of any of those individual elements of the photo or whatever. Like, I would have found it quite helpful in articulating my inner experience to be like, I was looking at this photo and I was really noticing that my hair looked nice or something. But there wasn't anything specific about the photo. It was just that I was looking at that photo and that was it, really. And taking it in, like certainly absorbing it, as Russ said before, like not just looking at it and that's where my eyes were. Like there was absorption happening, but beyond that, anything specific, I would say no.
And I guess we, like, for now, like, retain the possibility that some absorption could happen that's not experienced. Like, if I don't know, maybe just a process that's happening in the background, but experientially not really there.
No, not for this
Um,
one.
so not for, wait, what do you mean not for this one? You mean not that it's not there, or that it is there, or that it isn't there?
Oh, when you said experientially, this is probably just different terminologies, but like I linked that to like, oh, so experiential that like there was more than what I've described in this one. Whereas like this felt more just like absorbing and like, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Is there more ways for you to describe this absorbing kind of quality, this absorbing, soaking, whatever? Like, could you describe that in more depth if it's there? If
No, I
it's like
don't think
something
so
you
because it's
experience
really
more?
hard to describe because it just like that's the challenge that I'm having when we get these moments that it's just like it doesn't feel like there's anything tangible to hold on to. Um, like I know that I'm taking in, I know that I'm looking at this and I'm registering it. Um, so in that sense, it's not nothing, but
Mm.
I'm not. I don't know. It's not because the challenge is like if it conjured up like, oh, that's making me feel this, or I remember the way that that did, or someone said this, or whatever, then that's like much easier for me to describe. But none of those things are present,
Mhm.
so I don't really know.
Okay, yeah, I get that it's tricky for sure. Tricky for me too. Yeah, I'm curious, Russ, if you have other questions.
Well, I don't know that I have other questions. I might have a very different version of this than you do. I'm not exactly sure about that. But so my understanding of this sample is that Mel said coming out of the shoot that she was looking at her phone, she was soaking it in, she was taking in the screen, she was taking it in, and was quite confident about that for my way of being. And then she said something about, and there's nothing beyond that, and it was empty beyond that. And then we went down that alley as if we were talking about nothing. But I thought that the nothing was not. I thought that was sort of a red herring. So if I'd been asking the questions, I think I would have asked her, well, when you mean nothing beyond that, what do you mean? And she would have said what she said. I'm not looking at my hair. I'm not looking at my friend's dress or whatever it is that she said. And I would have accepted that, and the party would have been over from my point of view. We would have established that she was looking at her picture, taking it in. It was not nothing because she was seeing it,
Mhm.
but it wasn't anything particularized beyond that, and that would have been the end of the.
Yeah, I think there was something in the original description, and I don't know verbatim, but there was something that made me think, oh, this sounds like it might not be experiential. It sounds like it might be a description of like what's happening at the time, or processes that might be happening behind the scenes.
So I
So that's
remember you're asking that question, and I at that time thought I didn't hear anything that would have led me to ask that question.
Do you want me to
so
say
you
what I
thought,
wrote again? I wrote, I was looking at a photo on my phone of my friends and I in Melbourne the other day. My inner experience was just sort of soaking that photo in. There were no thoughts per se. I was just looking at the screen.
I think it was a sentence. I was just looking at the screen
Yeah.
that for me was like, well, maybe this is more just about the action.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's true. Maybe my line of questioning kind of made us focus more on the nothing. I think I wanted to be safe and say, oh, before we delve into what is there, like let's rule out, this possibility. So I think that's why I asked it.
I do think all that is a challenge, and I'm not, I don't know that there's a rule that says this is how you do it, but
Should we try? I mean,
okay.
my final impression is that I'm not sure about the sample. I guess that's the best I
Yeah.
can say. But should we try number 2?
And I would, even after you're saying that, I would say I'm pretty confident about it. I'm looking at my phone, seeing my phone.
Really
I don't have
interesting.
anything beyond that.
I think, Julian, I mean, not to speculate, but I think that you just find it really hard because we obviously have really different ways of experiencing the world. So, because I've had this so many times in conversation with friends lately about talking about this sort of thing, that if like trying to articulate that, which seems to be so different from perhaps what the way you experience things, or sometimes like that just is really challenging. Like, am I putting words into your mouth, or like you're like, well, I don't really trust the sample because I feel like it was sort of nothing and then it's not, and then you're not giving me like the right language or whatever. But like, I'm really at a brick wall here with how to describe it any more accurately.
But I feel, yeah, of course it is challenging. Your experience is different from mine. Lots of people, like everybody I do this has different experiences from mine.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel frustrated with how to explain it, you don't need to placate me, is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. If I ask a question, because I think towards the beginning you did say, like, you kind of entertained this concept that it was more of a nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't a nothing, don't entertain me. Be like,
Mm-hmm.
no, there was something there. There was some absorbing quality.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like you don't need to placate me at all, or tell
Mm-hmm.
me what you think I want to hear.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's no, but and that's a good note for me too, because that distinction between, because when there's that absorbing quality, like that just feels like my base level for me. So I guess in some ways I get in this habit of kind of describing that as nothing, because that's sort of like my like base starting point. Do you know what I mean? So I've got to get better at being like, actually there was an observational characteristic there, and that is different to like fully not taking in your surroundings. Like that, there's an important distinction there that sometimes I'm describing as maybe too similar because they feel not that different, even though they are, if that makes sense.
It's interesting. I would still be careful of saying my base level,
Mm-hmm.
because like every sample, we should treat as its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess we'll see is all that I can say.
Onward.
Yeah.
Onwards.
Okay. Next one happened at 4:57. I was speaking with my sister, and I was just fully engaged in the conversation. Right before the beep went off, she was speaking, and I was just listening and looking at her.
And listening and looking, by that, are you just saying that I am? Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out whether I'm seeing something in particular about her, or whether I'm just seeing her as she speaks to me.
Yeah, the latter. Like my eyes were focused at her, and I was aware of her, but it was nothing in particular. This is like that conversation sample the other week, I think, of like there was active listening present and like absorption, but that's sort of it.
Okay, but it's not like I'm noticing her hair, her blouse, or the tone of her voice, or or haven't gone into some ancillary thing about what it is that she's telling me. I'm taking it in, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then is this in some ways the same or different from the previous beep where I'm looking at a picture and taking that in?
Yeah. I would
Is
say
this
it's similar.
And by similar, do you mean sort of similar, or do you mean it seems like pretty much exactly the same thing except in different genre?
I think the same thing, because I wasn't listening to my sister and then like thinking about what I was going to say back, or I wasn't noticing any particular thing, or there was no like super vibe present. It was observational and taking it in. So I would say it really felt the same.
So I'm taking it in. It's not nothing, but it's nothing beyond taking it in.
Yeah, definitely.
Then I'm good.
Should we go to number 3?
Yep.
It's fine with me, unless you got questions about that.
Well, okay. I think I would have. Yeah, I would have been in. I'm still a little bit skeptical. I don't know.
About what? Go for it.
About still the possibility of nothingness, but maybe I'm too skeptical. So I don't know.
And what? Now that we can recall pretty much exactly what she said, what is it about that leads you to think that there was nothing, or the possibility of nothing?
I feel like some things aren't defined, like absorption and taking it in. I feel like there's a lot of different ways somebody could take something in or absorb something, and I'm still not quite sure what your way is like, Mel. And I just know what it's not like. It's not specific content. It's not specific. But I feel like I'm still.
That you can't imagine what that experience is because I haven't been able to describe the experience of absorbing. Is that what you mean?
Or just because you say it is hard for you to give more details on what it is like, and that it is similar to nothing. I think you've said before. So that's those are my thoughts about it.
So it seemed to me that you were saying it wasn't that you were so much worried that it was nothing, but that you were worried that it was something that was beyond what has yet been described.
Yes, I mean, because we talked about it before, and Russ thought I thought it was something meta, like you had to be, aware of your own processes, and I don't think it's something meta, but I do. I I would like more detail. I guess there's some more. To understand it better. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get that. But I don't because it doesn't feel like anything, it's hard to describe it because it just happens. Like I know that I'm taking in the content of a conversation and I know I'm looking at that photo and taking it in. But beyond that, like I can't describe that process or that experience because I don't have the language for that because it's not, it just is. Don't.
Yeah.
It's like coming back to that other week when I said like a knowing, like, yeah, I think if I keep talking, I'm going to confuse it more. But I know what you're saying.
Maybe Russ is less confused than me. But should we try beep number 3?
Yeah. Yeah, these are interesting to reread now after these conversations. So the next one went off at 5:21, and I've written autopilot, putting clothes away, and I was just doing that. I wasn't particularly aware of the noises in the background or the feeling of the clothes. I was just going through the motions, and my brain was kind of empty.
So brain kind of empty, putting away clothes, but it's not like you're feeling the texture of these clothes. Do you think there's anything experiential at this moment, or is it just more this action that you're doing?
Yeah, no, just the action. I sort of think. I think, yeah.
And would you say this one is emptier than the previous one?
What was the previous one?
Was the listening to your sister?
It's hard to say because, like, I want to say that this was emptier because, as we've said, like, I was for a fact taking in what she was saying and like actively listening to her, but like experientially, I think they kind of felt the same, which I know again that's like at odds probably with what we've described, but like if I'm being honest, I feel like the like state feels the same, even though in one I'm like actively absorbing something, and then in this one I'm saying I wasn't actively absorbing anything. But yeah.
So let me have a little meta conversation here about that, about your question, Julian. You asked, is this emptier or something like that? If you had asked, and she got into some kind of I would say a hybridization about the word empty, because she wants to say, oh yeah, it's empty. And if you had asked a less leading question, which would have been something like, how's this similar or different from the last beep?
That is
Then she wouldn't have had to have struggled with whether empty is the right word. And the problem here is that empty is more your word than it is her word. And she's a nice guy, and so she would like to be friendly with you, and so she wants to agree with what you say. But that muddies the water for her.
Yeah, no, I do think that's a better question. It's not quite. I mean, Mel, you did use the word or like, yeah, but I mean, I guess that's not the crucial thing. I don't have to hang on every word. It is a better question. I'm curious if we could go back and okay, what if we did like a thought experiment? You don't have to placate me at all. You can completely contradict what you just told me.
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer that question? Like, how would you compare this beep to the previous beep?
Um,
It might not be possible. But
no, I'm just like re-familiarizing myself. So that one I was listening to her, and that one I was putting clothes away. So if I forget everything we've just discussed, how would I compare them? Like I would say that they've felt similar. Apart from the fact that in the conversation I'm I'm listening to what she's telling me, whereas in the other one I'm sort of in this glazed over state and not like antenna up ready to respond to anything particular in that scenario or whatever. But if I go like really specifically, like, you know, at the time just before the beep went off in both those situations, I think that sort of state of being and inner experience really, really feels similar somehow.
Do you have follow-up questions, Russ?
I guess I would say you didn't have to ask it as a thought experiment because that's not possible. When you go, if you go into the realm of a thought experiment, then you're no longer in the descriptive mode, which is what descriptive experience sampling is like. You're saying, let's pretend, and in the world of pretend, there's nothing that's description. It seems to me
I don't think I really meant thought experiment, but just giving you a very difficult task, like asking you a question after I already asked a worse question.
Right, and so what I would say is that you can't undo it. It's we've had that conversation. That you could say, I am interested in whatever you can say about what it would be, how this experience was different from the last one.
Yeah. But
that's as good as you can do, I think. You can't ask her to erase something, because if you do that, then you don't know what you got after that. And another way of saying that is that descriptive experience sampling tries to live not in the hypothetical, but in the descriptive as best it can, which is short of perfect, but best you can.
Should we try number 4?
Mm-hmm.
Number 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. This went off at 5:50, and I was looking at Instagram on my phone. I wasn't speaking. Again, I was just looking at the screen and taking in the photo, but there was no distinct thought beyond that.
So you're looking at an Instagram screen?
Yeah, looking at like Instagram on my phone, so a picture on Instagram.
And is there anything similar to or different from the previous time you were looking at a picture on your phone?
No, I would say it feels almost exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
actually, no. I'm gonna disagree with that. Actually, I feel like maybe this one felt more like when we say my eyes are pointed in a direction, but there wasn't much absorption. Because the other one, I was definitely mulling over that photo and like taking that in. I remember when this went off, actually, like it was really incidental, and I actually wasn't really taking in the content that I was looking at, to be honest. Yeah.
So in this one, am I taking it in at all, or am I taking it in just less than in the first one?
I think taking it into some degree, but like way less. Like very like, very lightly.
Okay. And do you actually know what picture you were looking at?
No, I didn't write that down, and I remember at the time thinking that it felt inconsequential.
So in the first beep, you said, I was looking at a picture of my friends in Melbourne.
Yep.
And in this beep, you'd say, I was looking at Instagram, but I don't actually even know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, because this was different in the sense that, that first one I was definitely taking in that particular image and absorbing that, but then this one, it wasn't that level of absorption.
Okay. And so does this feel like my eyeballs are aimed and there's nothing in experience, or does this feel like my eyeballs are aimed and there's some minor little thing in experience, or maybe it's in the weeds and I can't be sure?
No, I think like minor little thing. It's not fully nothing. Like them definitely my eyeballs pointed and taking in something, but like at a far less level than the other.
Okay. And is there anything to say about what it is that you're taking in? Any experiential aspect?
No.
Then I'm good.
I'm good too.
And I would say that for me, has clarified a little bit about the distinction between nothing and very slightly nothing. That the first beep was not nothing.
Mm.
Yeah, that was interesting, especially the pause where, Mel, at first you said they're similar or the same, and then you're like, actually,
They weren't. Yeah.
this is the difference. And yeah, I see, Russ, what you mean about needing the question to be not leading, because I think if it was a more leading question, then you wouldn't have had the chance, Mel, for that. Well,
Yep.
actually, now that I think about it.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Number
Next one.
5.
This went off at 6:28, and I wrote, I was midway through typing a message to someone. There wasn't much thought. The words were just quickly coming out of my fingers. But this is interesting. This never happened before. I've written, I was aware of some pain in my body at this point, though. I'd done Pilates in the morning for the first time in a while, and my glutes were sore, and I was consciously aware of it when this moment happened.
So you were aware of the glutes being sore.
Yeah. Like that was it. I could feel that pain, and that was definitely in my present experience in the moment before the beep went off.
Let's look at the message part for now. You're typing and words are coming.
Mhm.
Is that at all experienced, or is that not the thing at this moment?
That feels like autopilot-y. So like it was in my awareness to some degree, but beyond that level of, there wasn't like a whole lot of thought associated with it or whatever. That felt really like A to B, doing an action and not requiring much more than that. Yeah.
And okay, and now for the glutes part.
Hmm.
How would you describe that?
Ooh, good question. Like just like a throbbing, I guess. So like I was standing up and I could just, there was an awareness of, like, pain feels like too strong a word, but like, there was I was just aware of that area of my body. And when I say aware, I mean like a tingle,
A tingle in the glutes.
a tingle or
Is it
throb, or
a
whatever.
right glute, a left glute,
Both.
both?
Hmm.
And by awareness, do you mean some kind of like noticing, like, oh, my glutes hurt, or is it more just the sensation itself?
Yeah, like the sensation was present at the time. So like in reflecting on my inner experience at the time, that presence was part of it. It wasn't a meta thing of like, oh, I'm noticing my glutes hurt, but it was like
Okay.
the glutes hurting was part of the inner experience.
Okay, it wasn't meta. It wasn't like, oh, my glutes hurt, but it was the glutes were
The,
hurting,
the sensation was felt.
tingling. Could you put an intensity to it, or does
Well,
that not make sense?
yeah, no, it kind of makes sense. It was intense enough that it was like within my awareness, but it wasn't like stopping me from doing my life. So I don't know, like I don't know. I feel like I'm really bad at these things when I go to the hospital and
You don't
stuff.
need to put a number to it or anything,
But yeah,
um,
like it was enough that it was definitely part of my awareness,
so part of it, but it wasn't like,
but it wasn't overwhelming. No,
earth-shattering, overwhelming.
yeah, no, it was a background part of everything. But then in saying that, like me typing the message wasn't I wasn't particularly aware of that either. So like in that sense, maybe you could argue like this is when we're getting, at the end of my ability to describe it. But part of me wonders whether the experience of the pain in my glutes was actually more present than like the message I was typing.
So more about the glutes, with the possibility that the message was maybe just what was happening at this moment, but it wasn't really the thing that was.
Yeah, in terms of inner experience. Yeah, I think that's true.
Okay. And about the sensation, were you standing up and this action was a pain associated with some action, or was it just
No, I was standing up, but I hadn't just stood up or anything. No. So it was just a constant.
and tingling? Is there a way you could further describe that? Like tingling, like little pricks, tingling, like burning? I don't know, like, or is it
Mhm.
just, or you don't need to stick to tingling, you could use, I don't know, is there any other?
And the first word was throbbing, I think. So
Robin?
Yeah, I would say like throbbing and tingling to the point of like where it's not it's like a sensation that you're aware of rather than like, oh, I can like, you know, physically feel in like this. No, that's not a helpful description. Just like an awareness of a throb within that area, but it's not like, yeah, these words aren't helping get clarity. Sorry. No, is
It's
the
like
answer.
a muscle thing or like a skin thing, or
No, not a skin thing. Yep. No,
okay.
more like muscle, more like what I'm trying to say is like it's a deep feeling like within the depths of my body, so that like throb and tingle is like within the depths of my body, but it's not not like
Mhm.
do you know what I'm trying to say?
Um,
No.
I think enough. I think enough. I don't know. Russ, do you have other questions? I think I'm good with questions for this one.
I have a couple. So there's sort of two strands of your whatever in this particular sample. It seems to me there's the typing of the message and there's the glute throb, tingle, whatever.
Hmm.
And between those, which one is more prominent?
Yeah. Well, I'm initially
As
probably
far as your experience, as far as your experience is concerned.
yeah, I think it actually is the glute thing.
60-40, 90-10, 99-1, 51-49,
Um,
as far as your experience is concerned.
I think like in terms of experience, like I think like 70-30 maybe, because the even though I was really like mid action with the message and that sort of thing, there was no that was really automatic, whereas the glute thing was a like really distinct sensation that was part of my awareness. So yeah, I think that was like more significant than the other.
Okay. Then I'm happy, and I'm going to make a meta comment here. So so there were two comparisons in this conversation. One is how would you rate this pain like you were in the medical doctor's office, and the other is how would you compare the glute to the typing. And from my point of view, those are two entirely different questions. One of them is worse than worthless, and the other is informative. Because the question about how would you rate this pain on some scale took Mel and she did a great job of articulating that to some abstract, not defined in the doctor's office. I'm going about my everyday life, whatever the hell that means. So it takes her into a realm where she doesn't know what she's talking about, but she's trying to give an answer because he has asked the question. The alternative question is, how does the strength of this experience compare to the strength of that experience? That's a within Mel
Mm-hmm.
at the moment of this beep. There's no abstraction or very little abstraction there.
Mm.
And that question takes Mel to thinking about her experience of in the glute and her experience in the typing.
Yeah.
And my guess, having heard the answer, my guess is when she said 70-30, I think what she really means is 90-10. And she's saying 70-30 because I don't know what that's what she expected me to be asking or something. I don't actually know, but the definition of her answer about the glute is way more defined. She knows the experience of the glute is a clearly defined thing for her, it seems to me. I'm not a mind reader. I'm just listening to how she talks about what she talks about. That's very clearly defined, and what's coming out of her fingers is not at all clearly defined. So my guess is that it's more, her experience was more about the glute than, but I don't really know that, and I would, I'm engaging in this conversation because it's a sort of a complicated world that we're existing in here. But I might say something like that. I might if I was just interested in Mel's experience, I might say something like, you're a lot clearer when you talk about your glute thing than you were about your finger thing, and see whether we can figure what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but the typing versus glute experience, it's good that you asked about it again, Russ, because I think my impression at some point was that this experience was all about the glutes, because Mel, when you kind of revised it and being like, actually, I think the glute thing is more the thing. Yeah, I kind of mentally revised it to be like, oh, the typing was just autopilot, automatic. So because I gotta say I was skeptical too when you first reported it. But now I don't know like how skeptical really to be about such things, or when is pushing too much. But
This,
yeah,
you go,
go ahead, Russ.
Russ.
I was going to say, I don't know that we have too many sensory awareness samples with Mel.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That this really stood out as like, this is a really different. We haven't had this sort of sample.
And I would say that as a general rule, or not a general rule, but very often people are a little shy about reporting sensory awarenesses as if they didn't count, and so they discount them. And now we're starting in the glute area, which might raise that shyness a tad or whatever. And so the bottom line is that it's all about the iterative procedure. We are not going to be able to say this is entirely glute focused, which I think Julian, you probably are right about that, or might very well be right about that. But we just can't tell about this beep. But now I think we have had some practice with talking about Mel's glutes, and then the next time if or when that occurs, then we can go more directly in that direction.
Yeah, I think this was a helpful one.
Yeah, it's also easier for me because I feel like there's more I can latch onto than these samples that are, between a nothing and a something, and those are harder to entangle for me.
Yeah.
So, but I do like the challenge of those.
And you and me both. Like, as I said on like week 1, like sometimes it's really frustrating for me to be like, oh, this is so wish-washy. But like, that's because that's sort of what that version of those experiences is. Whereas like, this one, oh, this is good. We can latch onto like a tangible sensory thing, or like when there's a real distinct clarity of thought, like it's easier for you, and it's also easier for me. It's when we get these nothingness ones, like I am equally as frustrated.
That's actually, I wanted to say last session before I froze, and then we were just talking about how I was frozen. But I was saying, kind of a concern I had was that you didn't want there to be nothing. and that you were maybe even a bit embarrassed about it, or and happy when there was something. And yeah, kind of something a concern of mine was that you would, I don't know, really want there to be something. So that's why I kind of lead by presenting this option of nothingness again. Um, but it may also be that I'm too stuck on a presupposition. We had some nothing samples, and maybe, I'm trying to force that onto other samples. So
no, I don't think you are. I think you're right. If anything is true, I'm like often searching for more when, if that's as good as we get on the nothingnesses, and that's my experience, and that is that.
Well, I have a little bit of a different take on it than that, I think. Because I think Mel has been doing a pretty differentiated job of describing nothingness. There's the first photo, which is I'm absorbed, but nothing beyond that. And then there's the Instagram photo, which is almost there was nothing even in the beginning of that. It's not like this was totally glazed over. So I think she's doing a pretty good job of discriminating in the nothing realm. And or maybe I should say we're doing a pretty good job. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a first person plural effort, I think.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get into is absorption. It could be something that just happens, like looking at your phone screen is a thing. Absorption could be a thing that's happening, but isn't like, something experienced. So I guess I want to hold on to that possibility when we talk about absorption. And then if it is experienced, get into what it's like. But I guess to still present the possibility that absorption could be something that's happening, something you're doing, something. But that's not something that's before the footlights of consciousness or foothills.
So I think it's great that you want to push on that, Julian. And the challenge is to push on it in such a way that Mel does not feel pushed upon. And that is indeed a challenge. But that is, I think that is a human challenge. I think that's how do we ask the series of questions without indicating to Mel that there's a right answer and a wrong answer to this question. And that's
all right. Last beep.
The art of the whole thing. Last beep, and I guess I would say we are at an hour. So,
oh, do you want it or not? Wait, let me see if it's interesting. It's not really interesting.
I don't think you shouldn't be the judge of that. I think we should do it on the basis of time, and we'll decide whether it's interesting.
Recording time is 53 minutes, so
right, let's do it.
Giving it a shot. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
6:51. This went off, and I've written. I was cooking and very much on autopilot. There was no overwhelming emotion or vibe. I wasn't really thinking. I was just doing.
And anything in particular about the cooking? Was it I'm cooking soup or I'm cooking whatever, or doesn't even matter?
I was about to turn the fry pan on and put some greens in there. I remember that much, but no, there wasn't. In terms of experiential, not a lot happening here.
So my body is engaged in a task which I can describe as being cooking.
Yep.
And that no doubt involves my hands and arms and whole body carrying this, and my eyes, balls, and probably my ears and the rest of my senses, and to some degree to engage skillfully in this task.
Yeah.
But with no experience at all as far as before the footlights of my consciousness. It's just these actions are coming out of me.
Yeah, I would say actions are coming out of me.
And I think I'm good.
I know.
Give Julian a chance to.
I'm good on that. I'm curious if you could say how it's the same. No, never mind. I was going to try to ask one of these same or different questions to try to get at earlier beeps. I don't think that's a good idea because I think the point's to figure out this beep, not retroactively try to figure out other beeps.
Yeah.
So,
My reaction to that as a matter of method is that if the other beep is clearly available, then there is often a good reason to compare it. So talking about beeps from today, I would say good. If I think at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about some conversation beeps, and it wasn't clear to me exactly which conversation beeps we were having. We had several conversation beeps. That, to my aesthetic, is problematic because then we put the generalization on. But if we want to compare the conversation that was in beep 2 today to the cooking beep, then I think that's more or less fair game. But I'm not suggesting that we do that. That's just a general purpose, technical kind of a thing.
Well, I guess we could try with beep 2, but Mel, feel free to say I can't make that comparison, or that you don't know. Beep 2 was listening to your sister.
Yeah.
Or the other alternative might be even closer would be beep 3, where you're putting clothes away.
Yeah. This feels closer to beep 3. So my hesitation around the beep 2 one was that it is a different, very slight, but very different inner experience because I am engaged in active listening. And so like really absorbing whatever she was saying at the time. Whereas in the cooking, I don't necessarily feel like that was an overwhelming, that wasn't super present. Like that was more that autopilot thing. So I think there is a distinction there. So comparing it to the putting the clothes away feels really similar though, where like you're doing things and whatever, but there's not like a particular sensory awareness or a vibey or a thoughty, just doing things, and beyond that it's pretty nothing. They feel similar.
All right. I'm good on questions.
Me too. Shall we do this again? What did we think of the time of day?
This is fine for me. Are you okay with this, Julian?